Welcome to an all new Deep Cuts Live. I'm your host, Antoine Reid, and today I have with me a first timer on Deep Cuts, which it seems fun to say that, considering that we've been doing this since, or I should say, I have been doing this since 2020 now. So it's been a while. So it's always fun to have someone new to talk to and to interview on the show. So today we have with us John Hakim, brand manager extraordinaire over at STG. Partagas, Gloria Cubana, has experience with several other cigar brands, but we're going to be focusing on those brands today. John, how are you doing?
Great, great, Antoine. Thanks for having me. It's funny, we've been talking, and I won't say, I don't want to say not friends, but like very much acquaintances and friendly for several years now. And I am glad you finally thought to reach out to ask me to be on the show. So I'm honored and glad to be here, and always love, when I see you at PCA or wherever else, always love talking to you. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, like I love having you SGG people on there. It's just sometimes it's hard to because I'm like some big companies like you to go like through one person and they'll like we will schedule the people, don't go
Yeah.
directly to them, and then it's like others is like we don't care, just go straight to them and ask them. So it's always weird. So I know you've had some personnel changes in the marketing department. So
Yeah.
there was a time where I remember like after a trade show I was like talking to one of your marketing people in the past, and I was like, I want more people from SDG on Deep Cuts, and they're like, oh great, like just let me know next week, and I let them know, and then they never followed up with me. So I was just like starting to ask you all like myself, like let me like just go directly.
Yeah. I think there was even during my time here, there was a period of time where if you didn't go through the right person, there was hellfire, and not that everyone wasn't nice, but it was sort of like you have to justify your existence a little bit, and it is a big company, so they want to keep track.
Mhm.
If everyone was going off, like the Avengers doing their little side projects, you would not be able to keep track. So anymore, it's gotten to the point where I love doing shows like this, and I love talking about cigars, and I've done a bunch of them, and I really enjoy talking to people, talking about cigars. So when people just ask me if I can do it, I'll just say yes, and then just usually like a week before the show, after it's already been slated, I'll go, oh yeah, I want to let you know, just so you know, I'm doing this show next week with whatever, and I'll send you the data so you can keep track of it or whatever. But yeah, we just book ourselves now, I think, for the most part.
Well, welcome to Deep Cuts. Like I said, hopefully you'll have a good experience, so it will not be your last. So,
Let's hope, right?
yeah, like we can stay hopeful, but we like to open up deep cuts with always like an icebreaker to kind of get the conversation going. Even though you and I were talking like nonstop before, and I was like, we should probably start recording just to have some stuff to talk about. But I like to choose kind of random questions. So I warned you that this is going to be like a random question that you're probably not expecting. Even though this is I tell you, this is like the most non-cigar podcast out there probably. So the question I chose for you, and I have like a list of questions that I just randomly come up with. So, but I thought when I came across this question, I was like, this is really a good icebreaker for John. So, if aliens landed and asked you to explain a good time, what would you tell them?
Wow. Explain a good time. Well, I'll try to keep it PG-13 at least. Because to me, a good time is, and this is not to be corny because we're on a cigar podcast, but really like a being with good people. It has to start with that. I mean, it's nice to be alone sometimes too, but being with a group of really good people that don't have to all be alike, but it like each other, and either listening to music or watching something on TV, having a conversation, having a really good cigar, generally, a really good bourbon, and just sitting there doing nothing but talking and laughing and having a drink and enjoying cigars, and just doing that for hours, to me is just really enjoyable. It's relaxing. I am a very anxious, tense person. I worry about everything, as any of the guys that work with me will tell you. So I can't meditate. I can't do yoga. I can't do any of that. My mind wanders, and it sort of, everything starts coming in, which is the opposite of how it's supposed to work. So for me, when I'm sitting around having a cigar and a drink and just talking about fun things that I like talking about, that's like my meditation. That's when I really relax. I think when my heart rate comes down, and uh, that to me is a good time. I mean, I love, look, I we go out and we run around till 2, 3, 4 in the morning sometimes too, doing all kind of crazy stuff. But to me, that's a great time. I love traveling and other stuff as well, but that's just, that's the good time. Like that's the good time. That's the attainable good time. That's again sort of a pat answer for a cigar podcast, but or a cigar
Hmm.
show, but and that's what I do for a good time. So that's how I would describe a good time.
Okay, so I think the aliens would be like, okay, we can jive with that. I always like
So
to
you're
think of
gonna
like,
so you're gonna imbibe all kinds of poison liquid and inhale smoke and sit around and do nothing. Like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what I want to do.
well, I always think of like the TV shows and movies like Men in Black and stuff, where or Simpsons, where you probably have these aliens kind of watching Earth from afar, just like these people are like wild. Like we're like the
Right.
best reality show, beside
Oh,
the Milky Way. They're just probably like, wow, this season is like the craziest. You wouldn't think. It's like, what's
yeah.
going on here?
Yeah, when you think about it, like just it's all ridiculous. I mean, just personally, commercially, you think about we just create, and I work in marketing. We create this demand for things and then create the item, and then people run out and buy it, and then eventually get sick of it and throw it out and buy the next thing that they created. Like it's just this self-fulfilling prophecy, like the dog chasing its own tail or the
Hmm.
snake eating itself. And then just relationship wise, like people are like from a very early age are pursuing like another person, like, oh, I need to find this person for a short time or a long time, find them, you finally find them, and then most of the time they're fighting or arguing or disagreeing about something. So it's all insane.
Yeah, I think that's like the plot of there's a show on Netflix called The Four Seasons,
Hmm.
and about these different couples and basically like their relationships. And I don't want to say each one has like their own kind of thing going on, because like there's one couple that's just pretty just normal. I think they're just kind of boring. And you
Hmm.
have like the other couple who's like the husband's just like tired of the wife, and you have a gay couple who is just like, one's trying to be very protective over the other one, and they're just going through these different vibes and situations and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to watch like how they all react to different problems too.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I've heard good things about it, and then I remember there was a movie, and I don't know if this is like a new version of it. I think in the 70s there was a movie, I
Yeah, I
think
think
called The
it was.
Four Seasons. It was like
I
Bo
think it's based
Derek and
on.
Elliot Gould and like all these people that were like big actors back
Yeah, I
then,
think
but I
Alan
vaguely remember
Alda
it
and
exist.
stuff like
Yeah,
that.
Alan Alda was in it. Right,
Yeah,
right.
so
I
yeah,
vaguely
it's
remember that
based on that.
existing.
So it's kind
Okay.
of like the same premise, but I guess new couples and new situations
Okay.
and stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah.
See,
So
you were warning me about a trivia question. I'm ready for you. I pulled out the
I
old
know. I
Four
think you're
Seasons
ready. You're just like,
unprompted.
yep, yep. Give it to me. So I always like wonder with you, how did you get into this industry? Because I love people's like origin stories about how they got into like the cigar industry. Because I think, especially like when I get asked that question, I just tell people, look, I got laid off from one job and I just needed another job. So I just like applied for to be a graphic designer somewhere, and then I
Yeah.
just stayed in this same industry, just moving around to different positions since then. So
Yeah.
that's my origin story. So what's your origin story?
Mine is a little more deliberate than that, I have to say. So I mean, I know we've talked a lot in the past. I don't know if we ever talked about my path to get here, but
Mm-mm.
just first and foremost, I've been a cigar smoker, cigar lover for probably longer than most of the guys I work with have been alive. My dad was a cigar smoker, so I've literally been around cigars from the day I was born, back when times were much simpler and there was a different Four Seasons out. I go to the local distributor and buy boxes of Macanudo Prince Phillips for my dad when I was, probably 8 on my bicycle. And back then they just, sure, go ahead, here they are, buy them. Uh, but so, we started off smoking cigars like just to keep the bugs away when we were little. And then it was, high school graduation, college graduation, got into it a bit. And, then more and more and more. And, the history's really been kind of funny that, you know, I was always like the boutique cigar chaser, boutique cigar smoker before I got into this company. Now I'm a little bit more mainstream, so to speak, but I've tried to do things a bit of a different way. But growing up, I have origin stories with all these brands. Like Macanudo was the first cigar I ever had, a Mac Cafe. Now La Gloria Cubana in like the 90s for that first cigar boom, I was around for that. Like I was a guy chasing La Gloria Cubana in the early 90s. And so now to be managing that brand and working, we'll get to this later, I'm sure Ernesto, is a great honor. But so I'd always been around it, but tr- I never thought of it as a career originally. I went to college, got a couple degrees, went to law school at the University of Pittsburgh. I practiced law in Pennsylvania as a criminal defense attorney for about 28 years. And the whole time, obviously, being a cigar smoker, there's a lot of that in that industry for or that career path for sure. While I was working, went back and got my MBA and really sort of liked business stuff, the business aspect of the legal job I had. And I kind of thought I was just sick of being a lawyer, quite frankly, no other way to say it. And I thought I want to do something I love, and I have a couple loves. I love sneakers, obviously, and I love cigars. And talked to a friend of mine who worked for CI, and we talked about it. He said, "There's always jobs posted. Why don't you look around?" And I saw this brand manager job, which I didn't think about working in marketing, but I'm reading this description. It's like, work with the blend team, work with the graphic design team, cross-functional teams come up with this, that, and the other. And I thought, wow, that sounds cool. Like I'm making cigars sort of, but without, having to hang my own shingle and put my own money on the table. Applied for this job, got interviews, interviewed all the way up to the VP. Because I was a bit of I don't know, a diversity hire or a minority hire because I had really no experience in the industry other than being a cigar smoker for probably 30 plus years at that point. It had to go all the way up to Regis, had to approve like the hire. But again, I wasn't just like a guy who casually smoked cigars. I was that guy that did all the research for everybody else. Like I would buy the box of cigars and hand them out to people. Like you got to try this, turn people on to them. And some of my good friends now that are, cigar like smoke probably 3 to 6 cigars a day, daily, are guys that I turned on to cigars like very early on. Like think before we went on, I was talking to you about a friend of mine. He, his first cigar was a cigar I gave him, which was probably a La Gloria. One of my good friends, the guy that I talked about coming into the industry, had a separate career, worked in counseling and worked in insurance, but had always was so into cigars, always had a part-time job working in retail so he could just smoke cigars for free and get his cigars at cost. And now works for Cigars International, our sister company, in management, not in management, but in the merchandising there. But
Mhm.
he was a guy. I've been smoking cigars with him since college, which I won't tell you how long ago that was for me. But I was the guy that gave him his first cigar. So it's very cool. I've always been sort of like the research guy to learn about what's in every blend, like who are all the blenders, who are the companies, who are the people behind it, learn the whole story, search out all the stuff that no one else ever heard of and give it to them. Just really cigar nerd stuff, to be honest. And so when I applied, it wasn't like, oh, I like cigars. Like hire me. Like this is what I do. This is what I know. I know people with brands. I know people with shops. I've done this, that, or the other, and talked to everybody for God. I think I interviewed like 6 people for 45 minutes apiece. So ran the gauntlet and got the job, and here I am. And it's been a fun journey. I haven't looked back. People will jokingly say, "Do you miss being a lawyer?" And the answer is always a resounding no.
So, like, how does STG define a brand manager? Because I think
That's
that's because I know because like for a media person, when you go to the trade show, you meet basically all the brand managers who are there, in their stations, as I call it, your
yeah.
booth. But it's like, what exactly? How does like STG kind of see like what do they expect of you brand managers?
Yeah, there's a lot of actually like project management in the brand manager role. So it's to me it's sort of like two part. there's a lot of product development, and then there's a lot of the regular marketing stuff. So for for us, like right now, we're planning out 2026 already. So for me, what we're doing as brand managers is going, okay, this is the brand. What are the brand's goals and strategies overall, big picture? You want to you know g- get out there the brand's name for awareness for some of the lesser known brands. You need to increase some sales on core products, generally on all of them, because everyone's attracted to whatever's new. And is there some one thing you're trying to do with that brand? And then what product do you want to put out to do that? So then you'd have to come up with the concept for that product. You would work with the factory, the blend team, to come up with the blend for it. Some people are more involved than others. Some people just say, I'm looking for something different. I want a Brazilian wrapper or medium body. And then they get a bunch of test blends. We smoke the test blends and they pick one. Some people are way more into the blending and more particular about, I want something like this with this, with this, these primings, this sort of tobacco varietal. So there are different levels of involvement there, but you're involved in picking that blend with the factory. And at the same time, you have to name the project, come up with the design concept, and then work with the design team to come up with the packaging. And then once you're done with that product development part of it, then it's sort of also simultaneously you're doing the marketing. How are we going to promote this? How are we going to announce it? What are the trade promotions going to be? Are there going to be events? Is there going to be online, contests or sweepstakes? Is there going to be, little Easter eggs here or there about things? Are there going to be hard goods to support it? With all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of this overall strategy, brand planning for your brand, but at the same time, you're deciding kind of what products are coming out as well, and then developing those products from the brands to the name to the package. And it really is a lot of fun because it's sort of similar every day, but it's different every day. There are
Hmm.
days you're buried in spreadsheets trying to figure out like what items are selling you know in what region, or whatever. Why is there a dip in this one front mark, or whatever it is? And then there's days you're just being super creative with the design team and trying to come up with these cool concepts and packaging and things. And it's a lot of fun. It's like something you never really get bored. You're always doing something different, and you get to change it up. And one day you're kind of a half-assed graphic designer because you're not really a graphic designer, but you have the idea and you're trying to explain to
Hmm.
them how to do this. Well, you were a graphic designer, you know what it's like to deal with clients. Your favorite. uh
Like, yeah, I don't know what I want. Oh, but that's not what I want.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Something like this, but not like that. Yeah. So, and then for me, working with the blend team, working with the factory, and smoking test blends and talking to these guys that have been doing it all their lives about what tobaccos to put in or how to change it or what their opinions are. I get to work with a guy like our, we just call him Don Johnny's, in the Dominican Republic. The guy's been around with the company for years and years and years. I mean, he worked with Daniel Nunez back when Partagas Black Label was a new cigar. Like, that's how long he's been at this. And he's our tobacco procurement guy, the tobacco expert. So to talk to him about all of that and the history of the brands and what he's seen come and go, it's just really fun. But like, short answer, brand manager is basically the marketing of the brand, as well as the product development and product planning for that brand as well.
So right now you're managing Partagas, La Gloria, and El Titan de Bronze.
Right. Yeah, managing El Titan is a little bit of it's a weird kind of statement because like they own the brand, we just distribute it for them. But
Yeah,
someone has to get their product and their ideas into our machine and then make that work. So it's a lot more of the marketing on that side than it is the product development, because it's Sandy. You're not going to tell her what
right.
to do necessarily. And if you ever met Sandy, which I know you have, if you did tell her, she wouldn't listen to you anyway. She's she didn't get to be where she is by being pushed around by anyone ever. So, but yeah, so I get to work with them, which is also a great honor for me. I mean, We drive each other nuts, but we love each other, and I really love working with them. Just it's so neat to be this huge company dealing with this super tiny little factory, and the differences are immense, but it is a lot of fun, like getting to work with them. But yeah, for now, managing that relationship and then managing the brands of Partagas and La Gloria.
So since you started with El Titan, I want to just tease, or not tease, but just kind of like touch on that for a few minutes, because that was the big release of like last year. It's like the big news that
Yeah,
you all are going to be working with Sandy. She was there
right.
at the booth. She was holding court there. Telling stories. I said it was my favorite moment of the trade show last year because she told some really good stories. I wish I had thought about recording, but then I was like, probably we wouldn't want those anywhere else anyway. They were kind of like questionable at some points, but you're just like, okay.
Yeah, she says something, then you're like, we all like, Sandy's to be a distinguished, older lady, and we all try to be sort of very polite around her. Everyone is very respectful. And then she starts talking and she starts going off on these things, and you're like, oh my goodness, I guess I don't really need to watch my tongue. But she
Yeah.
is so much fun. But yeah, that really was an exciting thing last year. It was sort of a surprise till the last minute, and we kind of tried to set it up like it was you were coming to talk to her, in her shop or in her house with the couch and everything. And I
Hmm.
I thought it was pretty successful little way to launch that, and it did get a lot of attention. It was a lot of fun.
So how's it going now? I mean, a year. I mean, you're kind of like a year into,
Yeah,
well,
it's
official.
it's a lot of fun. It's kind of slow going because we really launched it. It's a boutique sort of cigar, and
Hmm.
it's a very small batch because they only have so much capacity. So we really kept it limited, and we invited certain accounts to carry it. So it's only in so many accounts, so you can only sell so much in so many accounts. And then the challenge with it is if you're Antoine, or you're me, or you're Coop or somebody, you know who Sandy is, you know who El Titan is. There's a lot of guys that smoke a lot of cigars that don't really know a whole lot of detail. So the real challenge is getting that super nerdy boutique brand that insiders all know to be known by the masses, which was kind of, part of this was the point of this, putting it out there, an El Titan branded product in on shelves in stores across the country, which has never happened. So that's a bit of a challenge. The people who smoke it have loved it. It is a great cigar. It's for me to be super critical about it. I think the problem for me is it gets lost on the shelf right now because there's only one cigar. To
Hmm.
launch a brand, and I wouldn't be so bold as to say I'm launching that brand, but nationally, El Titan as a brand and not as a cigar maker, it sort of is. Doing it with just one cigar in three sizes is a little difficult. It can get lost on a shelf, but it has really been the cigar lover's cigar. It was on numerous top 25 or top 10 lists last year. Another very large cigar publication rated at 91 in most of the sizes, which was very nice to see. So it's been doing well critically for sure. I think for me the challenge is how do we bring more of those products into those stores to make a bigger presence on the shelf, to make more noise, and generate revenue? Because I mean, ultimately, that's going to be the name of the game. It is a business. Like for me, getting them out there as a brand and not as just a factory was my first goal. So
Hmm.
having that cigar across the country was huge for me, and I think huge for them, and getting some ratings and making some noise. Now step two is add to that sort of billboard on a shelf, and then start making noise sort of financially, and building it up and up and up. Hopefully that is the plan.
Well, I think Sandy's your secret weapon to that, because I think once people kind of get to know her, I always see her as like being like this person. Like once you meet her, you're just like, oh, I gotta smoke the cigar. Like you just like
Yeah.
it's like this. She's passionate about all her work and stuff. But she has like the greatest stories, and it's just like I know I was like with the little group from PCA last year when we met and we all walked away with like that was such a good story. That was like our favorite little conversation. It was like we're so unexpected and we all had our favorite moments. So I definitely think that she's the the secret weapon of getting her out there because there are some brands out there, especially I found with some of the boutique brands that if they have like a very strong personality at the
Yeah.
forefront of it, it helps because you're just like, I like this person. I just want to support this
Well,
person.
I mean, speaking of brands that we work with or, now have, like, Matt Booth is a great example of that. Like, who is more fun to talk to than Matt Booth? It's like, that brand, like, it's a great brand with some great cigars, but without Matt Booth running around being Matt Booth, I don't know if it's as successful as it is. I mean, for sure.
Yeah, I mean Matt Booth is one of my favorite people in the industry. But I mean, the cigars that he puts out are actually good. So I think that's
Right.
a big difference too. It's not just like he's a good personality, but the cigars are like so. It's like the
Right.
cigars are like really good to the point where you all had I know this is not one of your brands, but you had the humidor, which was like the big talking point in like the
Yeah.
STG booth this year, and he said to me, he was like, I think this will look good in your office, Editor Reid. I was like, first of all, you don't know what my office looks like. It's like an apartment. So I was like, I don't know if we have room for that, but I ended up buying one. And I was just like, well, there goes a paycheck, but that's,
Well, what color did you
it's
get?
fine. I got the teal one.
That is, I think, my favorite one. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that. I always call it seafoam blue. Like that
Right.
was a big color, like on like surf vehicles and Fender guitars, like in the '60s, like that seafoam blue. I love that. There was actually, I believe, I don't think they manufactured them, but there was a prototype that was this pale pink color that was
Oh.
amazing. I'm like, oh man, make me one of those. For
Exactly.
the
That would have been
for the
cool.
record, I don't have one of those. So you're one up on me. I don't have one. So,
Well,
but
I sold a kidney and stuff to get it, so
yeah,
I'm
talking
pretty
about
good.
Matt Booth though, like I always say this when I talk about him. It's like people kind of meet him and he's on, like he's always on. And a lot of people that don't know him well think that's just all a big put on. Like that's a show. Like he's going to be at PCA doing wacky stuff, being Matt Booth, and then he like gets in his car and he like takes a wig off and is super mild mannered. Like you're in a room with Matt Booth, like just having a conversation in the office, like that's what you're getting. Now, it might be a little toned down because there's not a camera in your face, but it's the same thing. Like that's Matt Booth, like throwing out like little non sequiturs all the time, references, like that's Matt Booth all the time. Like I talk to people who think, oh, it's a put on, he's phony. I'm like, you don't know Matt then, because like
Right.
that's not the case.
Now, getting back to the brands that you manage, we had like a little room 101 diversion there. But
Yeah.
um, one of the things that people really talked about when they were with the SCG booth was like there was a column outside of your booth. And I say a column, I mean, it was like usually when we talk about trade shows, people are just like, what's that? And when they look at the map, they go, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's a column. And they go like, no, like I hate columns and stuff. But you all like use it to your advantage because you had this nice wrap on it with Partagas and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
think like that was there's so many people who are just like, have you seen that column? Like you don't usually hear that at the trade show because usually it's like when people are asking like, did you see that column? It's like it's a problem. Like we
Yeah,
want you
it's
to
in the
magically,
way.
yeah, like we want you to magically move it away from us. But you all took
Yeah.
advantage of it, and it kind
Yeah.
of brought eyes to like the Partagas, Nada Imas release that I think was like visually very exciting, and I've
Hmm.
actually smoked it, and it was very good. So I
Yeah.
want you to talk a little bit about that release. How did it come about? And I know that you said it was for a slightly different target audience that you're trying to target with that one.
Right. Yeah. So we had actually the column editor Reed is talking about was like a big, probably about a 20-30 foot column, and it was like wrapped to look like that. So it was really sort of striking, and it worked out well because like we talked about planning the booths, but someone else who works for our company who handles a lot of like the work no one else can handle or will handle did. So it was sort of a almost like a bit of a surprise to us how what the final product was going to be. So that was really cool, and I'm glad you said something because I just to me that was the coolest thing about the Partagas section of the booth was just those huge. God, they had to be what 30 feet tall. That
Hmm.
wrap on it. So getting back to Inadamas, so Partagas has sort of always, or at least in recent years, sort of struggled as being stuck in sort of a been backed into a corner, so to speak. Like, oh, Partagas is this thing. Like it's very classic, it's very traditional. And when I took over the brand a few years ago, I kind of had some ideas. I wanted to do some things. And like, well, more times than I want to count, I heard, oh, you can't do that with Partagas. So meanwhile, at that time, I was managing Punch and Partagas, and I could pretty much do anything I want with Punch, as you've seen over the years. And everyone was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, do that. That'll get some attention. And then, with Partagas, it's like, I think I want to do, all made in the USA cigar. Like, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, why can't we? So, my thought on it is we have some really dedicated Partagas smokers who have smoked Partagas for years who really love it. And we have blends that are great and have, you know, stayed the test of time. Like the Partagas Classic, the Partagas Yellow, has been around since about 1977, when Ramon Cifuentes kind of finally landed from you know Cuba to New York to Jamaica to the DR. Like it's been about since 1977. The Party's Black Label we talked about before, that hit the market in like 2001. So from 77 to 2001 there was only one Party's, and then from like 2001, for several years there was only really the two core lines. So those are staples and people love them, and we've added to them with the Cortado, the Shade, which was very highly rated, great cigar, people love it. The Via Verde, with a San Andreas wrap, but really a different sort of San Andreas that really is aged and mature and sort of classic, not so much strong and in your face as some of the other San Andreas that I love as well. But my thought was I really need to just build those up as what they are, this classic traditional Partagas blends, and then have this other sort of line built out that is more for that newer smoker, that Matt Booth smoker, that Caldwell smoker, that guy that's looking for, something different, something more aggressive, something that'll catch your eye. So I kind of just really went for it. And despite having been discouraged from doing anything non-traditional with Partagas, I wanted to do a few things. One, go with some really different packaging that really caught your eye, that really stood out on the shelf, especially next to the other, Partagas brands, the other lines. And then we make all our Partagas, with the exception of the Partagas de Bronce that we did with El Titan de Bronze. They're all made in-house. So I wanted to go to some third party manufacturers, make some really interesting blends with some people that I respect and are really good, and then have this Partagas for the newer smoker, like the classic Partagas, and then the newer Partagas for the newer smoker. So you and your dad can both enjoy a Partagas, and they may be not the same cigar, and they may not be made at the same factory, but they're both going to be great. And so we went to Tabacalera William Ventura for the first one. For me, it was important just to go to Dominican Republic for the first one. To me, like our Partagas, like the one that General Cigar has, started in the Dominican Republic, and that's where I thought this Partagas should start as well. So it's sort of
Hmm.
that parallel origin story. I called it Santiago because that is the town in the Dominican Republic where the factory is and where Ramon Cifuentes started the Partagas company for us, so, or with us. uh we worked with Weber Ventura, Justin Andrews and Weber. He went to Weber. I told him this is what I'm looking for. And I kind of gave him like an open book. Like, we talked about how involved are you? I'm like, look, here's what I want. I want a medium bodied Dominican cigar that is not going to offend anybody, but is really flavorful, is really good, something that'll appeal to those the guys that are in that 25 to 35 range. And I smoke cigars with a bunch of these guys. And anytime like there's a new Caldwell, you're, in room 101, they want to run out and buy it when that fire happened terribly. I have one of my good friends here in PA went online and bought like every one of those cigars that kind of got discontinued because they couldn't make them anymore because of the factory. Like that's how into it. He had a whole humidor of those cigars. So something that appeals to that guy because he's not alone. There's a bunch of those. So we got the first test blend and it was really good, but it wasn't all the way there. Justin and I both had the same impression. Like this is a really good cigar, but it just needs something else. Like it's good, but not good enough to launch a brand. So we went back to Weber and said, you add a little sweetness to this. Like it was really good, but we need a little more of that sweetness to it. Came back with just the second iteration is the cigar you smoked. So loved it. Very, again, classic medium bodied Dominican, but with a lot of flavor. I think it starts off a little peppery and then that quickly dissipates and goes into like sort of graham crackery, earthy sweetness a lot. And I just think there's a lot going on. It's a super busy blend. It's a Habano 2000 wrapper, which it's the only Habano 2000 wrapper in the whole Partagas portfolio. Sumatra binder, and then the filler is like broadleaf and Corojo and Ecuador and Piloto from the Dominican. It's like there's a lot going on there, and you can kind of tell when you smoke it. I just think it's a really enjoyable cigar that doesn't knock you out. I really like full-bodied cigars, but I have smoked so many of these since we got the final test blends. I just think it's just a cigar that's easy to smoke, that's enjoyable. It's not boring and it's not overpowering. It's just an enjoyable cigar that anybody could smoke that won't be turned off to it. And it just different people. I kind of said this about the Punch Golden Era when that came out. It's a cigar that won't overpower anybody, but everybody that smoke like a beginner can smoke it and not be knocked out because it's so strong, and then someone who smokes a lot of cigars like yourself could smoke it and get so much more nuance out of it.
Hmm.
You can just smoke and go, oh, this is good, it tastes good and it doesn't knock me out. Or you can get the pepper and like on the retro, and you can get the sweetness, you can get the graham cracker. So I just really love it. And the concept again here is this inadamas, which is a very old saying, Partagas and nothing else, Partagas and nothing more. Like there's us, and then there's those who wish they were, sort of, so to speak. And it's that's sort of the the voice that I kind of think Partagas needs to have again. It's not, we're unapologetically Partagas, so to speak. And there will be more Inadamas. This is a line, not one cigar. There's Santiago this year. There should be another one next year, if everything goes as I think it's going to go. It will not be made by William Ventura, and that's no offense to them. I just want to keep changing it. Every year it's going to be something slightly different, so you get something new and different, and it's not just you know Habano, Maduro, Shade. Like they
Hmm.
might end up being Habano, Maduro, and Shade, but like that's not the only differentiation. It's something completely different, a completely different smoking experience every year. And there'll probably be 3 or 4 of them in the next 5 years, and really excited about it. I'm hoping that the reception commercially is as good as the reception was at PCA, because people really responded to the packaging, and we were giving out samples, as you know, and people were smoking it and really liking it. There were a few people that was like all they smoked all weekend. So that was great to hear, and I really was happy to be a part of it and happy to bring it to the world.
And before I give my comment on that one, I also want you to talk about the new La Gloria Cubana, because it was like a big headline,
Yeah.
because it was just like, I think it came out like a day or so, maybe, if I can remember correctly, before, um, um, right before the trade show. Like you kind of kept it
We
quiet.
we yeah, we announced it like the day before. That was sort of the plan, was to kind of announce it the day before, and then
Hmm.
like the we had the video that got released kind of at the same time. So the big story with this, and really excited for this, because I told you, my history with La Gloria, back in the day. So this is the new La Gloria Cubana, Los Gloriosos, the glorious ones. And it is Ernesto Perez Carrillo returning to La Gloria, the brand that he made, his father built and he made famous. Uh, and it's blended by Ernesto, and it is made at Casa Carrillo for us, and it is a fantastic cigar. It is the Unadamas is definitely medium cigar. Uh, the Los Gloriosos is, as you would expect from Ernesto, it's a full-bodied cigar. But I'm presuming you smoke that as well. It is
Hmm.
not overpowering. It is not one note. It is not boring. It's a very flavorful, balanced, full-bodied cigar. I mean, if you're super sensitive to it, I guess it could overpower you. But for me, smoking a lot of full-bodied cigars is just a really enjoyable cigar with a lot of flavor. Really sort of, it's nice to see someone who is a master like Ernesto make a full-bodied cigar that is just so well done, not one note, that is balanced, that has transition, that has flavor. And he takes it so seriously. If you saw, our booth was exactly right next there to Carrillo's, so he was over several times. He was signing some humidors with us. He was doing some interviews with us. He was just talking to us and taking pictures and things, and just such a good guy. It's been such an honor working with him. And quite honestly, like, I didn't know what to expect when I met him, because like he was sort of a hero of mine in the industry forever.
Hmm.
That La Gloria Cubana in the early 90s was my cigar. That was what I went to. That was all my humidor had. Like I was around, got that first aficionado, saw that rating, and saw it was like a less than $2 cigar. And I don't remember how I figured this out back then, but someone had told me, because you couldn't get them anywhere, because just like now, something has a good price and a good rating, they try to get the number one cigar of the year. Good luck, right? For a while, someone said, "Oh, you have to call Mike's Cigars in Miami on Wednesday morning. That's when they get their shipment from Ernesto." So every Wednesday morning, I would call, like, from the job I was working. I think I was either part-time or an intern at the public defender's office, and I would go into this one office and get the touch tone phone out and like call Miami. Did you get the Wavels in? And I get a credit card over the phone and order them to my house, back when they were still made in Miami. So me meeting him, he was just the nicest, most humble guy, and still will text me to say, like, how things going, happy Father's Day, or Merry Christmas, whatever. Just the nicest guy. His I only met Ernie and Lizette at PCA. I hadn't met them before. I met Ernesto at Casa Carrillo when we were working with him on the blend. Which was also kind of funny that I didn't have La Gloria when this project started. My friend Corey did, who was managing the booth, because I couldn't be two places at once. And he initiated it, but brought me with him when we went to work to do the smoking session of the test blends and meet Ernesto, because he knew how into La Gloria I was, and my history with the brand and everything. And I got to sit there and talk to Ernesto, and about the history of my history, and just such a good guy, and just would do anything for you. Hey, would you mind? I know you have your own brand and your own company and your own booth to manage, but would you mind coming over and signing some humidors for us and get your picture taken? And oh, sure, just let me know when. Like, such a good guy. And that cigar also is just so fantastic. That's another one where the history of La Gloria was always that, like, sort of Sumatra, wrapper.
Hmm.
And he just decided on his own, like, well, that's what I did then. This is modern times. Like, now, if I were doing the cigar, I would do Habano. And he did the Ecuadorian Habano. And it's a double binder, Nicaraguan, Jalapa and Esteli, and then Nicaraguan and Dominican fillers. And it just works. Like, you can't argue with the guy. He knows what he's doing. And it just, for those wondering, that big size, the 7 by 58, Grandiosos, that's his favorite size. That's the one he likes to smoke. He smokes it all the time. Actually, when we were at PCA, we were doing some pictures, and he wanted to light up a cigar. And of course, at the trade show, we hand out Toros, like that's the sample. He didn't want to smoke it. He made us, like, find a box of the bigger ones and open it up, because that's what he wanted to smoke.
What I felt like with both of the Partagas and that one, what you talk about it never being overpowering. there's always people who, the moment you smoke a cigar and you post it online, you get people who ask like, what do you think? Like, what is it? And like, is it good? And I feel like I'm like one of those people who I hate rating cigars and like
Yeah.
reviewing cigars. So I never do that. So I'm kind of get very one note in my reviews, like either say I like it or I don't really say anything. I skirt around saying anything about it. I just say like, yeah, it was like good for the, this or that. But like for those, like they were for me, like it's distracting when you have a cigar that's so strong that you can't focus or you can't get through it. It makes you feel
Right.
sick and stuff
Right.
like that. I don't think that's a badge of honor for a cigar. I think it's just distracting because you're like, wow, I spent money on this, or this person gave me this cigar. Why did they give me this one? So I like both of them in that they were very balanced and that they never overpower you. Like you could smoke them down to like the nub and and not, like I said, feel like you were done with it halfway through. So that's the first thing I want to say about those releases. The second thing is like what I felt like I learned from, especially this year, but in the last couple of years, as I've gotten a little bit more serious about cigars, and what I've seen with the ones that you've mentioned today, you talked about, like I wish people would pay more attention to like where cigars are made, like the factories, because if you like follow El Titan, the Bronze, and Casa Carrillo, and William Ventura, these are like big factories that make some of the cigars, like you said, like Caldwell, Room 101, like the cigars that have like lots of like the fanboys and fangirls and
Hmm.
just big followings that are very like, and then they, you say like try this cigar and they're like, oh no, I don't like that cigar. It's like, but it's made by the same it's made by the same factory that makes like these. It's
Right.
basically like from that factory. I wish we followed factories a little bit more than we follow just
Yeah.
the brand name, because like I'm sure that for you as a brand manager too, like you sometimes encounter that somebody's like, oh, like this new Partagas, you like try this new Partagas. Oh no, I don't like Partagas. Well, do you like this and this brand? Like they're made at the same factory. Oh, really? Okay. You know.
Well, yeah, and that's the tough part because for someone you're doing what I do, it's like, well, I know who I'm targeting and I know what they like and I know who makes that. But a lot of the people that smoke it don't know who makes it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are probably a whole bunch of people that are like Caldwell fanboys, and not that there's anything wrong with that. The cigars are great. He's certainly a hysterical dude. On another note, him and Booth together, that's a trip. But there's probably a bunch of guys that think like Caldwell is sitting somewhere in a basement, like rolling these cigars he's putting out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they don't know. So you got to try to educate them a little bit, but at the same time, especially working for a cigar brand, you also don't want to sell like. And I smoke a whole bunch of people's stuff. Like I don't know how you could. Anybody who's like, oh, I work for this brand, so I only smoke this brand. Like, well, then what do you know? Like, you really have to smoke everyone else's stuff to know what's out there, to know where you want to take it next, and to know what you want to avoid sometimes too. But I think that it's hard for me to go like, well, this is made by this, and I've been saying it forever. This company makes this stuff. It's like I'm not trying to sell those other cigars. Like other people are going to
Right.
buy them anyway because they're good. Like so, but I'm not trying to steer people over there either. But it is an important part of the education process, and we were talking about it. I think before even we got on that I think a lot of that education is missing. Like people don't always know what's in the cigar, who makes the cigar, or why they even, like what they like. And that's sort of part of that thing that we talked about before we came on about the cigar industry or the culture being a little bit daunting or intimidating to other people. Because if it wasn't, you're afraid to say, I don't know why I like this cigar, but I like it. So what I always tell people that are newer is, well, when look up that cigar that you like look at
Mm-hmm.
where it's made, look at what the blend is, and then when you find other cigars you like, do that same thing, and you're probably going to find one thing in common. Like, oh, I like broadleaf. They both have broadleaf wrapper. I must like broadleaf wrapper. There's something about that flavor that I like, or I don't like these. Like, well, they're both Connecticut shade, and maybe you don't like Connecticut shade, or they're made at this same factory. Oh, I like what they do. But, I think to if you are a little bit newer, or and even if you're not, like you're sometimes afraid to ask those questions. But I think if you're in the industry, you have a duty to at least know what's in the cigars. You'd be sort of disingenuous not to. But yeah, I think that's one of those things, and I think it's sort of our job to try to educate. And that's always been a part of what we do with our company is that kind of cigar education, either through our websites or shelf talkers. Both of these cigars that we're talking about that we launched at PCA both have shelf talkers that talk about the blends and sometimes about the story. Because for the people who do know, they can at least look at it and go, oh, Sumatra, I like Sumatra, whatever it is, or I
Hmm.
hate Sumatra, I better stay clear. But yeah, I think that is kind of the sad part. People don't know, and we got to get them to know.
Yeah. So for anyone watching or listening, like definitely give, these cigars that we've talked about on today's show a try, because I think you'll be, pleasantly surprised if if you've convinced yourself for whatever reason that you don't like them, or you've tried a cigar from this, brand before and it
Right.
doesn't resonate with you. Like, these cigars are not all made at the same factory. So it's
Yeah,
worth giving it a try, like giving the new
yeah,
iterations like a try. I always
and
tell
I,
people
and I
start off with, just give it a try. Start off with a robusto, something like non-committal. Just give
yeah.
it a go, and then you might see what you like, and you can try the other sizes from there. But
Yeah, and I think too, not to be a huckster, because I'm not really here to sell. I'm here to talk about the cigars. But like both of them, one of the things that we did, and there are a lot of similarities. They're both very different cigars. If you smoke them both, they're very different. But there are a lot of
mhm,
similarities. One of the similarities is, we've been very attuned to what's going on in the market and the economy. So we really sort of these both started out at a different place, and we thought, well, we need to kind of help ourselves and help our retailers and help our consumers. And we brought the price down on both of them. So like they're both sort of priced to buy. I mean, the Partagas is priced between $8 and $10 for all three sizes, and the La Gloria, they're bigger sizes, and that's still between $8 and $11 for those cigars. And they're both for that price, especially, they're really great cigars. The other thing that I think is similar with them both is they're both sort of these back to the future sort of concepts where they were developed by two different people and then sort of managed by me. But the Partagas is like this new cigar with a new blend for a new consumer in this new crazy packaging. But every part of it is sort of based in the past, with Partagas colors and Partagas imagery from the past. So it's sort of, that vintage modern, so to speak. It's like modern,
mhm.
but it's retro. And then the La Gloria is really a throwback to where it began with the white box and the original Lady La Gloria Vista, and blended by and made by Ernesto Carrillo, who made the brand famous. So it really is that kind of back to the future with the La Gloria, and sort of a step one foot in the future and one foot in the past for Partagas. So like they share that sort of uh, DNA in some ways.
So at this point in the show, as we kind of wrap up this part of the interview that we're doing together, I like to ask like each guest like the same kind of questions to kind of round out the interview. So the first of those questions is, do you have a philosophy that you like to live or work by?
You know, it's one of those things, and I don't know that it's sort of a philosophy that I live by, and maybe it is. I mean, they're sort of similar concepts. Like if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Like you really,
Mhm,
with other ways, saying, like, don't half-ass anything, but like sort of, you know, if you're going to do it, give it everything you have, and really do it well. And I think part of that for me is sort of that old, not to give you the Latin because that would be really dorky of me, but fortune favors the bold. Like,
mhm.
there's a lot of those kind of things go through my head in my personal life and my professional life. There's the quick and the dead. Fortune favors the bold. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. One of the things, especially in this profession and this hobby, I love Jerry Seinfeld. I was watching, comedians in cars getting coffee, and he had Christoph Waltz on, who is not a comedian. So I had a little bit of a problem with that concept. But they were smoking cigars. And, Christoph Waltz said, cigars are like comedy. If it's not exquisite, why bother? And that
Mm.
has stuck with me. And that's the way I think about it. If you are ever out with me and we're smoking cigars, if I don't like the cigar, I'm putting it out. I don't care if someone gave it to me or if I paid $50 for it. If I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to sit there and suck it down because I paid for it. That's not why we're here. That's not why we have this hobby or this passion. This is supposed to be your relaxation. This is supposed to be exquisite. And if it's not, I don't have time for it. I am certainly not a rich man, but I have more money than I have time left on in this world. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to waste my time with something that's I don't enjoy, whether that be cigars or people or anything else. Like, had a, we talked about, I had a career for 28 years and I said, I'm sick of this. And I walked away because I don't have time for that anymore in my life.
So I want you to finish the sentence. John Hakim is.
A tremendous pain in the ass most of the time. And that's kind of a joke, and it's kind of not, because I am sort of meticulous about a lot of things, and I'm sort of a nitpicker about a lot of things. I'm just anal retentive about a lot of things, and I'm just, you know, a worrier or in a lot of ways. So it's, if I'm on something, I'm on it. But I think probably the kinder way to say it is I'm really passionate about the things I love, whether that be, my career or my family or, just my love of cigars or sneakers or, music, whatever it is. I'm immensely passionate about the things that I love. And, I've heard it said before, someone, called me a man of extremes, because if I'm it's sort of that mercurial sort of thing. Like, if I like this, I am all in, like with both feet. Like, I didn't work in the cigar industry, but I, bought every new cigar that came out and bought it, was every cigar magazine and read everything there is to know. And I was just into it. And if I don't like something, I don't have time for it, I am just not going to bother.
Well, for those of people who are watching this or listening, could you just tell people, all the social media? I know that's a lot since you manage so many different brands, but can you tell people like what social media they need to be on the lookout for to kind of keep up with the latest from the brands that you manage?
Sure, sure. Thank you. So, both Partagas and La Gloria have websites. There's lagloriacubana.com, partagascigars.com. I mean, Partagas.com, lagloriacubana.com. Partagas Cigars is the IG handle. Partagas is the Facebook and X handle. La Gloria Cubana is a little easier. It's just La Gloria Cubana across the board. Also, if you're looking for El Titan, El Titan has their website, and they also have the El Titan de Bronze Instagram. And then when we did our redemption, just to kind of help separate the two and promote that in place so people wouldn't be confused, we also have ETDB Redemption, which was dedicated to like what we put out, and we'll be adding to that. And there are links back and forth to the two. Also, we tag each other all the time. But yeah, I mean, if you want to keep up on what's happening, go to follow the Partagas and the La Gloria Instagram. Also, you can sign up for the email list on the website. La Gloria also has the La Gloria Society, this is what a nerd I am, Antoine. This is like, I don't know if you can see, this is one of the La Gloria Society cigar cutters. And you get a little membership card if you sign up. Like, I've had these for I don't know how many years. So I started working for this company, and someone else had the Gloria. I'm like, I came home and took a picture. I think the cards are all numbered. I don't even know what number we're up to now, but I think mine might be like 250. Like that's it's like your social security number is 6, like that's how long I've
Mhm.
been around.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on, and sit tight because we have a couple more things to film once we're finished with this part of the interview. But I look forward to having you on again to talk about some, future releases from all these brands that you're managing. And uh,
We're always cooking up something, and I always love talking to you. So you let me know if you want me on again. I'm happy to come back. Sorry, I purposely sat outside so I could have a cigar, and then like I'm talking to you and I'm puffing away on this thing instead of
oh
just
no, it's good.
focusing. I guess that's kind of what I do. So
Yeah.
going back
So,
to my answer about what a good time is, right?
so John and I are going to film a couple more things, but for anyone listening or watching, thank you for tuning in today, and make sure you like Deep Cuts Live on whatever platform you're watching it on. If you miss any of this episode and want to see others, everything is on youtube.com/Deep Cuts Live. That's the easiest place, where everything's in one place for all the past 5 years or however long I've been sitting here in this chair doing this. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time.